Welcome to Christ and Culture. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that was in Time magazine about 3 weeks ago, and it's a difficult situation because it involves a runner that you might have heard about named Caster Semenya. And this runner is actually an intersex athlete, which is not in any way like a transgender athlete. It's intersex athlete is someone who actually has sexual organs of both male and female. And so this is not quite the same situation as we're seeing around the country today, where we're having essentially guys declaring themselves women and then competing in women's sports and having an unfair advantage. This is a little bit different. Now, as the outcome, the final conclusion, I'll tell you right ahead that I believe that Caster Semenya should not be allowed to run as a woman against women. That does not mean that I'm judging Caster Semenya for being intersex, because it is an abnormality. It's a genetic abnormality that this person suffers, and they need to be respected because all people are made in the image of God, and they don't need to be laughed at or seen as a freak, although it is a freak of nature to have sexual organs of both male and female. It isn't something to make fun of. It isn't something that Christians should look down upon. It is an abnormality. It is not the norm, and we should resist this person and other persons trying to promote the LGBTQ cause through their genetic condition. And that's what we see in this Caster Semenya. So this person is not simply saying, well, this is the way I was born, and I want to just live my life in the quietness and not bother anybody. No, this person is a promoter of the LGBTQ cause and is an activist. So when someone does that, then they deserve to be criticized. And so I'm going to criticize Caster Semenya for trying to push her way. I will call her because that's what she claims she is, and that's what biology can prove partially, and that's what she was raised as, and so we'll call her a her. Not the same as calling a trans woman a her when actually she was born a man. That's not the same thing. This actually is the situation where Caster Semenya has a vagina, and so she is partially woman, but also partially man, and so the situation is different here. But I'm going to call her by her pronoun in this instance because I believe as a Christian, she's in that situation where she's right in the middle there. According to the experts, she could have been raised male or she could have been raised female, and she was raised female, and she calls herself a woman and believes she is a woman, and biology supports that she is a woman in the sense that she has certain characteristics that are part of a woman, although the other half of the story is that she has certain characteristics such as an XY chromosome that would also indicate that she is male. She's an intersex person, and that is a combination of both. A very rare situation in genetics, and it's something that should not set the standard. It should be recognized and respected. The person shouldn't be ridiculed or made fun of because they're intersex, but they also shouldn't be allowed to set the rules for the Olympics and other competitions, which is what Caster Semenya is trying to do. So Time magazine wrote an article a few months ago It's actually in the July 29th, 2019 edition. And I'm just going to read this, and we'll talk about it. It says, and this is Castor Semenya, and Castor Semenya, as you can see, looks very much like a man, has bone structure like a man, has muscle tone like a man, has no breasts like a man, runs and participates in athletics like a man, only she has a vagina and she has no penis, and she is actually raised as a girl and identifies as a girl, and in some competitions she's allowed to run against girls, and of course, obviously, she wins. She beats the other girls and women in her competition. So that's an unfair advantage, and I'll explain why. But let's read the article and talk about it. It says, South African star Castor Semenya won't stop fighting for her right to run just as she is. Okay, so she's fighting for herself. In other words, she's not thinking about what's best for the other women. She's not thinking of what's best for women's sports. She's not thinking of what's best for society. She's just saying, hey, I want to compete in this classification, and what's best for me is what I'm fighting for. That's not a hero. That's not someone that we would actually look up to and say, hey, this person's a hero, they're brave, they're fighting for a great cause. No, she's fighting for herself. She's fighting for the right for herself to compete, and I will believe unfairly, against others. It says, Castor Semenya walks along the side of the Stanford University track in late June, stopping to take selfies with her fans, who crowd around a fence to get a glimpse of her. We love you, Castor, shouts one onlooker. A guy gives her a thumbs up. I can't believe I'm this close to her, says a woman who, like Semenya, hails from South Africa. The two-time Olympic gold medalist and triple world champion in the women's 800 meters has just won the prestigious Prefontaine Classic at Stanford, finishing the race in 1 minute 55.7 seconds, the fastest 800 time ever clocked on American soil. When you're great, Semenya tells Time, while enjoying the adoration, you're great. Okay, so she's talking like Muhammad Ali used to talk, talking about herself as great, and when you're great, and so on. That's a bad sign, but hey, other athletes do it, that shouldn't disqualify her. If the global governing body for track and field had its way, however, the scene at Stanford would be a mirage. Last year, the International Association Athletics Federation, IAAF, issued new rules mandating that female athletes with differences of sex development, defined as the presence of an XY chromosome pairing normally found in men, could not compete in women's races for the 400 meter to the mile unless, through medical intervention, they lowered their natural testosterone to a level closer to that of IAAF calls the female range. Okay, so the International Athletic Committee is grappling with this whole issue. They're trying to set standards and make it fair for everyone, not just Castor Semenya, but for everyone. They're dealing with a real problem, and the real problem is, what do you do with someone who has characteristics of both male and female, and how do you make it fair for the women in women's sports to compete? And they're grappling with that. The IAAF argues that the high level of testosterone produced by athletes with such a genetic makeup provide them with an unfair advantage over other female athletes in these races. Semenya, who has faced scrutiny surrounding her gender for a decade and would not be ineligible to run the women's 800 meters naturally under these new rules, challenged them in a court of arbitration for sports, which settles global sports disputes. In May, the CAS announced it was upholding the IAAF's regulations. Semenya then took her case to Switzerland's Supreme Court, which ordered a temporary suspension of the rules until the issue is solved. So Semenya ran the Prefontaine race without having to suppress her home runs, and she can compete at the World Championships that began September 27 in Qatar. Her case has stirred passions around the world as it touches on essential questions about genetics, gender identity, and fair play. Is it even possible to classify athletes as men and women when the human body sometimes sends out more complicated signals? Well, yes, it is, and it has to be. We have to have an orderly society. We have to have standards. Unless you're going to, in athletes, just say, okay, forget about men, forget about women classifications, throw everybody together and let Caster Semenya run against whoever. Let her run against the women. Let her run against the men. Let her run against whoever wants to compete against her and see who wins then. But you know what? I don't think Caster Semenya would be happy with that. She wants to actually run exclusively in the women's races because she has an advantage over the women because of her unique genetic situation. So she wants to compete against only the women. If the IAAF were to say, well, we would like you to compete with the men, she would object to that because she would say, no, I'm a woman. But that's not telling the whole story. She is a woman under certain standards, but then she's not a woman under certain other standards, and she would be classified under certain standards as a man because she has an XY chromosome. And so she's not being totally honest. And that's, as Christians, we would encourage her to follow the admonition of Jesus Christ. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you were a woman and you had your XX chromosomes and you had all of the markers of womanhood, would you like someone coming in to your race who has XY chromosome, which is normally, almost universally, 99.999% found in men, and have elevated testosterone 3, 4, 5 times that of women? Would you like this person coming into your category of race and beating you every time? Would you feel that was fair? Now, I think Caster Semenya needs to think about other people rather than herself. Now, as Christians, we don't want to put her down and criticize her for having a genetic problem, because it was no fault of her own that she has this XY chromosome, that she has a vagina, that she has no breasts, that she has the body and bone structure of a man, because of the testosterone, elevated testosterone and all these other things. It's very confused in her body. Her body is very confused, and she is a very rare specimen of the humanity, and it's hard to classify her, but she needs to empathize and sympathize with the other competitors in her races and say, look, I understand that I'm a unique situation, and I understand that it's not fair to me, but it's really not fair for the women who are running against me, and she needs to show a little sympathy and empathy. I don't see that coming out at all in her comments. It says here, the article says, Semenya was born a woman, was raised as a woman, and is legally recognized as a woman. Of course I'm a woman, she says back in her hotel room. I have a vagina, I don't have a penis. Okay, that's true, but she's not saying the whole story. Now, this is what she needs to do. She needs to be honest. She also needs to say that I have XY chromosome like men have XY chromosome. She also has to say I don't have breasts like women normally do. She also needs to say I have super high elevated testosterone levels like men not like women have. And she needs to get the whole information out on the table instead of playing only the one evidences that support what she wants to happen. And so that's a fundamental dishonesty on her part. She needs to come clean and say, I understand why this is a controversy. I understand and I empathize with those women who say this is not fair. She says, here's what she says. What they're saying is when a woman performs at a high level, it's a problem, says Seminya. No, that's not what they're saying. They're saying when a woman has mixed characteristics in her body, they're not sure that that's fair, that she should compete with other women because it gives her an unfair advantage. That's the issue that they're grappling with, not that when a woman performs at a high level, she is put down by this bad, powerful board of executives. No, that's not what they're doing. They're trying to grapple with a real issue, and you need to begin to get honest. It says, she says, what they're saying is when a woman performs at a high level, it's a problem, says Seminya. But when a man performs, oh, great, all hail greatest. No, that's not the case. And she knows it, and everybody else knows it. So until she begins to see the problem honestly and with truth, she is going to be part of the problem, not part of the solution. Even the CAS said in its decision that the IAAF regulations are discriminatory, but that such discrimination is reasonable and necessary to promote a level playing field for female athletes. So they grappled with this, the higher-up authorities, and they said, yeah, it's not fair for you, Castor, but it really wouldn't be fair for the others if you were allowed to compete. Seminya insists if the IAAF rule holds up, she'll refuse to take medication to lower her testosterone. If I have to walk away, of course I will walk away, she says. It's like killing yourself. In CAS testimony, Seminya revealed from around 2010 to 2015, at the IAAF's insistence, she took birth control pills to lower her testosterone and said the drugs caused her to feel sick, constantly suffer from regular fevers, and experience abdominal pain, among other symptoms. Her confidence suffered. She felt like the IAAF treated her like a lab rat, and she says she won't take part in another experiment. Okay, so she was willing to try to lower her testosterone level to what the range of women have in their body, instead of the high elevated testosterone level that men have in their body naturally. Okay, now she's saying, no, I'm not going to do that. You either take it the way I give it, or no, I will walk away. What baffles Seminya most, would the IAAF want to drive a star attraction from its sports, with her name constantly in the headlines for both her dominance performance? She has won 31 straight 800-meter races dating back to 2015, and the biological controversies. Seminya is probably track and field's biggest celebrity. She's endorsed by Nike, which featured her in a new ad campaign. Last year, LeBron James caught one of her races in Berlin. One fan at the Prefontaine Classic, she never felt more alive than when she watched Seminya glide. If people want to come watch Castor Seminya run, then let them watch Castor Seminya run, Seminya says. What they care about is just seeing one human inspiring another. Don't destroy it. It's that much, I ask. Is it that much to ask? Well, it's a matter of fairness. It's a matter of justice. It's a matter of what is right. And what she doesn't seem to want to do is think of anyone other than herself. She wants to continually be that selfish performer who by any means will win and gain glory for herself and be the best. And like she says at the beginning, she's the greatest. You have to be great. She says, when you're great, you're great. So this ego thing. From a Christian perspective, we feel for her. We know that she's made in the image of God. God has a special plan for her. In no way should she be laughed at or ridiculed, made fun of, picked on. But pushing herself into a classification, women's sports, and saying, no, this is where I'm going to be because I want to be here, and it's not fair to deny me that. That's being totally 100% selfish and not thinking of the other girls and the other women who just want to run in women's sports. So if you keep pressing her argument far enough, you're going to get to the point where the judges are finally going to say, okay, forget about all women's sports. We're just going to lump everybody together. Everybody competes against everybody. And what's going to happen is you're basically going to have all male competition, and there will be no women's sports. I think sane people have to recognize that there have to be standards. They have to be loving, and they have to not be harsh and rude for people like Caster Semenya, but they have to be firm and say, no, you don't qualify to run in a track race. You don't qualify as female. That's not saying you're not female in life, and we're not questioning your classification as female in your life. We're not making a judgment about your personal life. We're just saying, for the purposes of standards in a track and field meet, you don't meet the standards for women's sports because of your unique situation. Semenya, who earned a university sports science degree in South Africa in 2018, has taught herself to silence all the noise around her. She believes the IAAF is obsessed with her. By paying track officials little mind in return, she's already a step ahead. You're a free soul, she says. I run my race, and then I'm going home. You're thinking of me. I'm giving you nightmares. I'm not even thinking of you. So again, that self-centered ego, it's just about me, what I want, this is the way I am, you're going to bend the rules for me kind of a thing. That's not good. That shouldn't be allowed. What about sportsmanship? What about fairness? What about, yeah, you compete as hard as you can, but you have to have sportsmanship too. You have to think of others. You can't just push yourself to the front by any means. Semenya, however, does use our interview to call out IAAF President Sebastian Coe. She considers him a chicken for making his arguments against her in court and the media rather than engaging with Semenya directly. You must have balls to come to tell me that. Look, Caster, I don't want you, says Semenya. Then I will tell you that's your problem. No, he's not saying, Caster, I don't want you. It's not a personal attack against her. Again, she's personalizing everything. She's making everything about her. She's making everything about her ego and how great she is. It's the president of this group is not picking on her. He's trying to set, along with the others, a standard that is fair for everyone, not just one person called Caster Semenya. Semenya talks in a direct manner with a sort of contagious defiance. Yes, definitely a defiance. She seems to make a good psychologist, pastor, or politician. When I mention to her, she tosses aside public office and preaching, but she's open to sports shrink practice. For a young age growing up in a rural village of South Africa, province of Limpopo, Semenya knew she was different. I have a deep voice. I don't have boobs. I play around with boys, she says. It's okay. But she never questioned her gender, and it does not change that I'm a woman. I'm not a man. I'm not going to live like a man. But then I like trousers. I'm going to wear trousers. If I like suits, I like suits. I'm not going to go around wearing skirts, wearing dresses if they don't suit me. Okay. That's partially fair, true, what she's saying, but she also didn't say that she married a woman. She married a woman. So she has a wife. That sounds like a man. So she's acting like a man. She has biological components of a man. Her wife recently, her so-called wife, recently got pregnant. How did that happen, and by what mechanism did that happen? We don't know. That's something that I guess she doesn't want to say or doesn't want to reveal. It's her own business, but when she goes talking about all these characteristics of a woman, she's not really being honest, because she didn't say that she is now married to a woman and she has a wife. With all her gold medals, Semenya could easily abandon this legal fight and walk away from the sport with her place in the record books, but she still has work to do, both on and off the track. Semenya, in her 12th international season, her idol 800-meter runner Maria Matula of Mozambique ran for 21 years and competed in 6 Olympics. Why can't I do that? Okay. Then there's the larger battle for her rights and the rights of others to run free. There are a lot of athletes who have the same problem as me, but they cannot fight. But if I don't fight for them, no one will fight for them. No, there are not a lot of athletes like her. That's the point. There are not a lot of athletes like her. There are hardly any athletes like her. And she's trying to make this into, well, I have to fight for them. That is so dishonest. She's not trying to fight for anybody but herself. She doesn't care about other people other than herself. She knows that there are not all these other athletes like her. She says there are a lot of athletes who will have the same problems as me. No, they won't. There isn't even one single athlete that has hardly anything like her situation. So she's really kind of living in a delusion. She says at the end, I'm here to stay. You'd better get used to it or walk away. Again, defiance, self-centeredness. Yes, there need to be standards for women's sports. If it means that Caster Semenya is excluded, well, then that's what it means. No, there's nothing wrong with her. No one should ridicule her or pick on her. It just means that she can't run against women, because in her unique biological situation, she has male and female biological components that give her an unfair advantage in the women's races. Now, as a Christian, we want to avoid all of the controversial rhetoric that the newspapers put out there. But as Christians, we need to say, yes, it's good to have rules. It's good that there are standards for women's sports. And Caster Semenya needs to show some empathy and sympathy for the whole situation, not just think about herself. Well, I hope that's helped in understanding this situation, and we'll see you back next week on another edition of Christ and Culture. God bless.